Hello, my name is Marina Dickson, and this is the Institute of Geoeconomics program on Geoeconomic Insights, where we take one story shaping today's international politics and draw out its implications. Today, I'm here with Kazuto Suzuki, Director of the Institute for Geoeconomics, to discuss populism's current trends and its implications on geoeconomics more broadly. To begin, in last month's election in Italy, the Brothers of Italy, which has been described as a right-wing populist party, claimed victory with 26% of the votes. Sweden has also seen an uptick in support for the Sweden Democrats. Such support for a party that is seen as right-wing nationalist was almost unimaginable 5 or so years ago. Given these recent events, do you see populism spreading further in other regions across the globe?
Well, I think so, yes. There are potential for spreading populism around the world, largely because of the impact of globalization, which affects on the people's jobs. You know, some of the high-paying jobs are moving to the global south, and that is making the unemployment more common in the industrial area of the advanced industrialized countries. And also in case of Italy, there are issues with regard to the flood of the migrants coming in Italy. And also there are a gap between the north and south of the country, so that the northern parties like Alliance has a very strong support by the right-wing population in the north of Italy. In Sweden, this is a very unique case. I think Sweden has a stronghold of the Social Democrats, but the Sweden Democrats are pretty, right-wing, and again, this is stimulated by the flood of the migrants, and I think it is a big challenge of the tradition of the Sweden to maintain its record on the human rights and the protecting the flood of migrants and giving all the benefits for those who are coming from outside. So these are just the tip of the iceberg, and there are sort of a general dynamics in the politics, particularly in the European continent, but also some forces which led to the Great Britain to leave EU, and also supporting the Trump administration in the election in election of the Donald Trump in 2016. So these are all result in general as the impact of globalization. And I think, it's not limited to the European or the US, the North American continent.
Right, I completely agree. And I think that's a reason to sort of take our look towards the Southern Hemisphere, while we see right-leaning populists picking up seats in some countries, like we mentioned. In other countries like Brazil, we see a similar right-leaning populist, Bolsonaro, going head-to-head for the presidential race against Lula, who is seen as a left-wing populist. Do you feel like populism is gaining momentum irrespective of where on the political spectrum?
Well, I think there are variations of the impact or momentum of populism in different continents and different countries. Latin American countries has a sort of a similar trend. For example, if you look at Colombia, the left-wing populist president was elected, and also the traditional populist camp is occupying the power for many years in Venezuela. And also, what happened in Chile, for example, is another case that left-wing populist, well, not exactly a populist by definition, but I think there is a certain momentum of the populism in Chile as well. So I think there are differences among the countries, and behind there are histories of political histories developing the political culture in each countries. But I think there is a general trend that is pushing the populist in front of the political scene. And Brazil, in particular, the Bolsonaro, which is an incumbent, and playing like a sort of a he's a tropical Trump, or Trump in the South, but he also been fighting with the former President Lula, who was the head of the labor union, and he is quite popular among the workers. But I think these two candidates are both can be defined as populist. So it is also reflecting on the historical background of the Brazilian political culture. So I think these are, in the Latin America, it has sort of a different logic and different dynamics from the North America and Europe, but still populism as the part of the populism is embedded in the culture of the democracy in this continent.
Thank you for that. I think, as you emphasized, populism tells us a lot about a country's domestic politics and the grievances that voters themselves might have against the establishment that's in power. But I'd like to turn our attention to how that affects global politics more broadly. Do you think we are likely to see any consequences on aspects such as free trade, including any indication that it will cause countries to lean towards protectionism?
Yes, as I said in the beginning, I think there is a shock wave of globalization which are impacting on the national politics. The globalization which allows the free movement of capital, free movement of workers, and it will remove the factories from the high labor cost countries to the low labor cost countries. So that is creating a lot of unemployment in the industrialized countries. And eventually there are a lot of migrants who are coming from the global south to the industrialized countries for the higher wages. And that is also creating the very strong tension between the existing population, including the former old-comer migrants and the newcomer migrants. And that is creating the lot of hatreds against the migration, and also hatreds against free trade. So there are sort of very strong momentum particularly in the industrialized countries that is pushing the politics towards more populist trends. But on the other hand, there are a certain number of people who are trying to protect the traditional political culture by respecting human rights and maintaining the liberal trade policies in order to make sure that these are the better options for the economic growth and the economic prosperity. So there are kind of the bipolar situation where a group of establishment people who are either both right wing, left wing, but still conservative and maintaining the traditional values of the democracy and human rights, whereas there is a group of the people who are more spontaneous and more sort of a short-sighted, driven by the anger and hatred, and these forces are now taking over this sort of a traditional camp of democracy. And I think this is a very important point, that both sides are creation of the democracy. If there is a very strong feeling, and somewhat these are generated or provocated by the social networks, but these forces are also being represented by the politicians and the parties. So as long as we maintain the democratic system, then we would allow the populist forces to take over the power, and that may be also the consequences of democracy.
See, thank you so much for that. That is all for today. Thanks so much for tuning in, and be sure to check out and subscribe to our YouTube channel for the next episode of Geoeconomic Insights. See you next time.